All right, sixth grade, welcome to our first video. We're going to talk a little bit about the division we've been doing in class. I know some of you have struggled with this, long division. I'm going to show you two different methods today. And parents, if you're with your child while they're watching this, you can stick along too or stick around because it'll help you understand the terms that we're using and how we're doing it in class so you can better help your student. All right, we're going to learn two methods for division today. The first one is called the traditional algorithm, or we'll just call it traditional. The traditional method. Now this is the regular method, or the old school method that we learned in school if you're my age. We didn't learn the other methods, we typically just learned this one. So we're going to learn that one, but we're also going to learn a new method called partial quotient. Now partial quotient means you're getting part of the answer. My students should know by now a quotient is an answer to a division problem. Partial quotient, we're going to get pieces and parts of the problem until we get the entire problem solved, and then we'll add those up at the end. So those two are the two methods we will use in this video. First one we'll talk about is traditional. First problem we're going to do is 729 divided by 3. All right, so when we have this problem, I want you to remember these four letters first. We have a goofy way in class of remembering these. We say dumb monkeys swing backwards. And you take the first letter for each of those. Dumb monkeys swing backward. And your child should know by now, or students, you should know, this stands for divide, multiply, subtract, and finally, bring down. Now, some people call it, does McDonald's sell burgers? We just use dumb monkey swing backwards. It's kind of goofy and funny, and most of the students will remember that. So the first thing we have to do is divide. How many times does 3 go into 7? 3 goes into 7 2 times. We're going to put the 2 up here. So we've done the dividing part. Next step, we're going to multiply. We multiply whatever we have up here times the divisor. Now the divisor is that number that's on the outside. It's the number we're dividing by. So we multiply the 2 times the divisor, gets us 6. Next step, we're going to subtract. So you put your subtraction here. 7 minus 6 gives us 1. Done with that. Next thing we need to do, we need to bring down. So we're going to bring down the 2 from the next place. We have 12 down here. We've done all these steps, but we're not done. We have to go back around and begin dividing again. So we're going to divide the divisor, that little number on the outside, by the number down here. Some of my students go too quick. They come up here and they try to divide by that second number or by that 2. We need to remember when we start this over, we're going from the divisor and we're seeing how many times it'll go into the number down here, which in this case is 12. So 3 goes into 12 4 times. We're going to do our multiplication again. 4 times 3 will get us 12. We're subtracting again. We're going to continue to go through this divide, multiply, subtract, and bring down the entire time. 12 minus 12 is, of course, 0. We need to bring down. We have this 9 to bring down. There's our 9. Okay, we just brought down. Now we have to go back to the front. And we're going to divide one more time. 3 goes into 9 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. And we subtract. 9 minus 9 equals 0. Now, we have no more numbers to bring down. We have nothing to bring down. We have a 0 here, so our answer is 243. That is how we use the traditional algorithm, or just the traditional method. So remember, divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Now you need to do this one. This is the one that you are to do on your own, not with my help. It will be 346 divided by 2. 346 divided by 2. I want you to try it with the traditional method we just talked about, and remember, dumb monkey swing backwards. Divide, multiply, subtract, and bring down. All right, the second method that we're going to work on is called partial quotient. If you remember, partial quotient means we're going to find part of the answer to the division problem, and then we're going to continue to piece it and part it together until we find the whole answer. Several of our students like this method, so I definitely want to make sure you understand it. Now keep in mind, if you like the traditional method better, use it. I don't require my students to learn both or to memorize both. I do require you to be comfortable with at least one. So if traditional doesn't work well for you, partial quotient might help you out better. The first one we're going to try, 336 divided by 3. 336 divided by 3. Now, if you notice, the bar here looks just like the last one that we've done, but with partial quotient, we're going to take this division bar all the way down. We're going to take the division bar down further, and you'll understand here in a second. We want to look at the whole number here, not just one number at a time now. We're going to look at the divisor, which is this little number, and the dividend. The dividend is the big number inside of the division bar. So we're going to look at the divisor and see how many times we think that little 3 can go into 336. So most of my students can look at this mentally, and hopefully they can see that you can get 300 down here. You can use 3 times 100 to get 300. And if you look over here with your multiplication, 100 times 3 is 300. 300 fits inside of 336. So if you do 100 times 3, you can get 300. We can subtract 336 minus 300. 6 minus 0 is 6, 3 minus 0 is 3, and then 3 minus 3 is 0. So we're left with 36. But we have part of the answer. We know it's going to be 100, and then some more 3's can fit in there. What we can do with partial quotient, find part of the answer, subtract that number, the product from whatever you think you can get in, times the divisor, so 100 times 3 in this case, and you can take that off of that total dividend. You'll have something left, which is fine, because now we can look at 3 and 36. How many 3's can fit into 36? Some students might not be able to know that right away, and that's okay for now. Most of the students will know the rules of 10. Well, we know that 3 times 10 equals 30. 3 times 10 equals 30. So we can put the 30 there. Make sure you put the 10 on this far right. We're not putting anything up here for partial quotient. Everything goes over here on the right for your answer. And that'll make more sense here in a minute. 36 minus 30 gets us 6. So we're not down to 0 yet. We have to keep moving until we get down to 0 on the bottom. How many times does 3 go into 6? It's 2. And then we use our multiplication again. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 minus 6 is 0. So we're down to 0 here on the bottom. That's half the battle. The next thing we have to do, we have to add whatever we put on the right. We have to add these together. 100 plus 10 plus 2. That should get us 112. 112 is the answer to this problem. And you didn't have to do the traditional method. You got parts of answers. You chunked them off into numbers that are easy to figure out. 300 and 30 can come from 110. So if you remember your rules of 100, you remember your rules of 10, that will help. You can also look at 6, easy. 3 goes into 6 2 times. Most of my students can do that. So 112 is the answer once you add all those up. And it's a lot easier for some people to do that than thinking the traditional method. We're going to try one more like this, and then I'll give you an example on your own. All right, your next example will be one that we just did with traditional algorithm. That way you can see the same problem twice, and you can better understand how we can make this work. We'll do 729, once again divided by 3. This is the first problem that we did under our traditional method. This method will help you understand a little better if you have trouble with the traditional method. All right, So we're looking at how many times 3, not how many times 3 goes into 7, but how many times can we get 3 into 729? That's a big number. I don't know that offhand myself, so we need to look, how many do we know will fit? Well, we know 300 will fit. We know that 300 can go into 729 pretty quickly. So how many times does 3 go into 300? Well, that's 100. So 100 times 3 is 300. We can subtract this to start getting down to our partial quotient answer. 9 minus 0 gives us 9. 2 minus 0 gives us 2. 7 minus 3, we have 4. So we have 429 left. We're not done. It's going to be 100 and then something else because we still got to get rid of this 429. So we know that 300 will fit into 429. So we can just put another 100 down here. We can put another 100 down there and put another 300 here. And that's the great part about partial quotient. If you go too small, like with the 300, you can keep going. You can keep going with that same number. We already know 100 times 3 is 300, so we'll just put another 100 down there, and 429 minus 300 equals 129. So 129, how many times does 3 go into 129? Well, we can't do 100 again, because 300 is way too big. But you might remember that 10 times 3 equals 30, so let's try 20, because 20 is a little bit bigger than 10. We can see what they can do, and you can actually go off to the side here and off to the margin of your paper or whatever you're writing on, and you can do 20 times 3. 3 times 0 is, of course, 0. 3 times 2 is 6. You have 60. So you can put 60 down here. Do your subtraction. 9 minus 0 is 9. 2 minus 6. We can't really do 2 minus 6, so we're going to have to borrow. Make this a 0. Cross your 2 out and make that a 12. 12 minus 6 is, of course, 6. We're left with 69. We're not down to 0 yet, so we have to keep moving. We just did 60, though, and 60 will go into 69, and it'll get us close. So we can just throw another 20 over here. 20 times 3 is still 60, just like it was 2 minutes ago. 69 minus 60 gives us 9. 3 goes into 9 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. So we can do 9 minus 9, and I'm getting down to the bottom of my board there, but 9 minus 9 is 0. So we're done here. We have all the way down to 0. We went from 729 to 0. It looks great. One more step we have to do. We have to add these numbers together. It doesn't matter if we just have the 2 or 3 like we did last time, or 5, or if you have 9 or 12. It doesn't matter however many numbers you have over here. You have to take the time and add those together. So we have all the zeros here, and then the 3 in the ones place. So we have a 3 here. Then we have a 0, 0, 2, and 2 is 4. Then we have the 2's right here. So 243 will be your answer to this problem, 243. Same answer we got when we did the traditional method, just a little different way of doing things. All right, we have one more problem I want you to try using partial quotient, and I will be collecting these when you come back in the next day for class. And you should have both of these answers, the one for traditional and the one for partial quotient, ready when we start. All right, your partial quotient problem I want you to do, 765 divided by 5. 765 divided by 5. Even if you like the traditional method better, I want you to try one for the partial quotient. So you have one for traditional, one for partial quotient. I want both of them ready for me when we get back from class, and I want you to tell me which method you prefer. Thank you. Have a good night.